Okay, it's day 481 off the grid. It also happens to be my anniversary of born day today. And so far it's been a pretty cool day, and I've got one particularly awesome present here that I want to show you. Baffy got me this for my birthday. It's a battery analyzer. In fact, strictly it's an automotive battery tester, but this is an awesome tool to have for off-grid stuff. So I'm just going to give you a quick little demo on this and then talk about April. So to test a battery, you obviously connect it to the battery. It's self-powered, so it doesn't require any internal batteries, which is nice. It'll never have a flat one. Like a lot of these testing devices, it's got these special clips that are actually got, you can see there, they're actually a two-part clip, and that's so it can mitigate its own cable resistance. Otherwise that would upset the test. So we'll just put it on this end battery here. As you know, these are the batteries in the infamous 10 volt battery bank and the AGMs. So we've got the neg on, and we'll clip the positive on. Got to make sure you've got a really good connection to the terminal, otherwise it won't perform the test properly. So there we go. Menu 1, analyzers. We hit enter. Out of vehicle, of course we're out of a vehicle. Standard cold cranking amps. You can set it for marine cranking amps and a few other different standards for evaluating starter batteries. And then we hit enter, and we'll go with the default rating of 500 cca. I mean, this is an AGM deep cycle battery, so it doesn't really have a rating as such. So you know, so we're just going to go with the default, but that will still produce a meaningful test. So hit enter. There we go, testing. And look what we come up with. Obviously, you saw that. 24% stator health, 0% charge. Good. Recharge. Now obviously not all of this means something to us. For a start, we know that it's never going to be 100% of a battery because it has already lost a cell. But what is meaningful here? Okay, first of all, 245 cold cranking amps. That means this thing can actually put out a bit of kick still. What else? Well, obviously the voltage tells us the voltage, and we kind of knew that anyway. But here's the next thing. Internal resistance, R equals 12.1 milliohms. Now, for a pretty stuffed battery, that's actually pretty good. So that tells me that this battery is worth dealing with. Pretty cool, eh? So I can use this as a comparative test. You know, I can test other batteries as well. Like, for example, let's test this one. Do this quickly. Right, okay, we're on the big one now. Enter, out of vehicle, standard CCA, standard 500, and testing. 12.82 volts, 00 CCA, internal resistance 45.4. In fact, that's the highest it'll read. So this immediately tells me that this battery here has got a much higher internal resistance, and it's not going to contribute as much to running loads once this bank's in operation. In other words, this battery here is clearly a lot more stuffed than this battery here. In fact, it even says replace. So, you know, I could have come up with these results by spending 2 or 3 hours with my test bulb and coming back every hour or so and multimetering the voltage and come up with this conclusion. But now I can make evaluations like this within seconds. So that is just friggin' awesome. Friggin' awesome. Really rapt to have this. I also found that even when batteries are wired together in a bank, you can still get a good comparative result. Even though the result itself might not be totally accurate for that battery, you can still compare down the bank, because the connecting leads offer a much higher resistance comparatively than directly to the terminal. So even the tiny resistance of connecting leads in a battery bank can serve to isolate batteries from one another when this test is being performed. Although I wouldn't tabulate the results and go, here, this is the results, but you can still certainly weed out batteries, so that's cool. And I actually did some work on the solar today. Last night I was a bit of a twit because we've had 2 days of pretty overcast weather, and I've been hell-bent to get to the end of April without running the generator, so I decided to use the auxiliary batteries in Shed B to top off these freezer batteries here using the CTEC, which I can do. But the idiotic thing I did was I forgot to turn it off when I went to bed, and the CTEC is capable of charging a 24 volt battery bank from another 24 volt battery bank that can drop to as low as 14 volts. In other words, it's basically got no sort of low voltage disconnect, so it'll cane the batteries. So yeah, I got up in the morning, first thing I did in the morning was to go and switch off the charger, and the batteries had dropped to 17 volts. Not very nice. However, it's really sunny today, so that served a really useful situation, because I was able to really see how my diversion circuit was performing, because I had some totally flat batteries on the auxiliary circuit. These batteries here were almost completely full because I had given them all the auxiliary batteries charge overnight, and the sun came pelting out today, so I was able to see my diversion thing fully in action. And there was one little issue with it that I solved totally. What that was it got into a state where the main MOSFETs, which are these two, would turn off, but then the auxiliary MOSFET wouldn't fully turn on. In other words, there's a sort of a no man's land between the two states where sometimes it was getting into. And I quickly figured out the reason for that was because the signal from the charge controller here doesn't necessarily fall close enough to 0 volts in order to affect the change of state. So all I needed to do was reduce the voltage from this, and I did that by inserting an LED in series. Of course, the red LED will drop about 2 volts, so now its on signal is about 2 volts lower than it was, and that's fine. But its off signal now is 2 volts lower than it was, and that's a lot better. And now this thing is switching brilliantly, and the net result of that is that if these batteries here are fully charged, which they were earlier, but I wasn't filming, then what will happen is, as this controller PWMs and the charges modulated to these batteries, the ammeter will stay pretty much in the same position, because it's not going nothing from the panels and then full amps and blah 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 blah. It's always taking full amps from the panels, and it's just either sending it to these batteries when they need their pulse, or sending it to the other batteries when they don't. Of course, the other batteries are regulated at the other end in their own way. So I was just really rapt about that on my birthday of all days, eh? So that was pretty cool. When I got some time, I'll sort of tidy those up. And I did have a really high value resistor in here that was sort of isolating this from the charge controller somewhat, but once I improved the circuit by installing that return diode on the MOSFETs, I didn't need to worry about that anymore. So now I can use a relatively low resistance. So I've only got a 1K resistor and an LED in between the gate drive terminal that I installed on the sticker and the input to my real-time diversion circuit. So that's pretty cool. And what else is there to say, really? Yeah, no, the last thing, really, I'll turn those lights out so I don't forget. Going out soon for a bit of a mush up the river or something before we go and get KFC. Okay, the last thing to say, really, is Well, here we go. Here's a solar system, and it's the 30th of April. We ain't going to be running the generator today, which means in the month of April, which of course, if I convert that into Northern Hemisphere, is essentially the month of October. So in other words, you know, we're coming up to, well, we're coming up to mid-autumn. So that's what it would be, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere. In October, you'd be coming up to mid-autumn. You'd be coming up to Samhain. But, so the month of April, which is one of our darker seasons, no generator run this month. No generator. You know, no generator. I mean, to be fair, I've got to say that, you know, some of that is due to, we have had outstandingly good weather here in Shannon for April. Outstandingly good weather. You couldn't hope for a better weather in this month. You couldn't. And so that was good, of course. So there's that. But I think it is also due to the system improvements, mainly due to the new batch of 24 volt panels, or two 12 volt panels in series up there on the roof, which is the final link in the chain to keep the freezers running. So I think, you know, that was really what it was, because last year in April we ran the generator 8 times for battery charging, and most of those times were instigated by the fridge freezer circuit, the 24 volt circuit in shed A here running low. But this year, nada. So those panels, system improvement, you know, obviously I put this panel in. I don't think, these ones might have been there by April, I can't remember. They wouldn't have been long in anyway. So, and what's the other system improvement? Back in here we go. Of course, installing these 2 new Zenith batteries to replace the tired ones that were there before. So, and I reckon today what I've done here is actually a major improvement, because this is just working a lot more efficiently now. So there we go. I think that's all I really want to say. It's been a cool day. Battery made me some awesome breakfast, or it was brunch basically. By the time we had it, there was some bacon and eggs, which has started to become a tradition for my anniversary of born day. And also, oh yes, in the morning, yes, something I got her for her anniversary of born day a few days ago. She put it on for me. Say no more, say no more. Yes, so that was day. Well, we're still going. I mean, I've said what we're going to be doing, but as far as solar power and all that lot goes, we'll go back to this. That's day 481 off the grid.